ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, accompanied by Coach Steve Kerr, Joe Lacob, and Peter Guber, and Mr. Jerry West.
Well, welcome to the White House, everybody. Give it up for the NBA champion, Golden State Warriors. Everybody, please have a seat. Now, let me begin by saying I was hoping that Riley Curry would be here today to share the podium with me, but I guess I'm going to have to get media training some other day. The East Room is not as loud as the Roaracle, but Dove Nation is well represented. We've got some members of my cabinet and Congress in the House who are big fans, and I don't just mean Harrison Barnes, who apparently they call the senator. He's from Iowa, so maybe he's got some politics in his blood, but we've got one of the biggest Golden State Warrior fans around, our leader in the House of Representatives, Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi. We got Republican leader Kevin McCarthy is here, so this is bipartisan. We have Mayor Schaaf is here. So we're glad you're here to celebrate the best in the Bay. What's going on back there? I also want to recognize Warrior Executive Board member and NBA legend, one of the greatest of all time, the Logo, Jerry West. He's worth a standing ovation. As well as owner Joe Lacob and general manager Bob Myers. Give them a big round of applause. Now, it is rare to be in the presence of guys from the greatest team in NBA history. So we're pretty lucky today because we've got one of those players in the house, Steve Kerr from the 1995-96 Chicago Bulls. It's good to see you back. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Warriors started the season without Coach Kerr, who was recovering from back surgery, so Luke Walton stepped up and led the team to a ridiculous 39-4 record. Unfortunately, the NBA won't let Luke count those wins as his own, which, man, that doesn't seem fair. You defied the cynics, you accomplished big things, you racked up a great record, and you don't get enough credit. I can't imagine how that feels. Now, let's face it, the Warriors are in the midst of a pretty special two-year run. Folks are saying that they are revolutionizing basketball. They are so good that they seem to be just breaking the game itself. And I don't play anymore, but I still know a little bit about basketball, and this really is one of the best that we've ever seen. Great shooting, great passing, a small ball, nuclear lineup. It's almost not fair. And they play not just well, but they play well together. They play as a team the way basketball is supposed to be played. And it's beautiful to watch when they're working on all cylinders. Now, let's face it, beautiful was not how folks described the Warriors for many years. I may be one of the few who are old enough to remember the last time they were good. Back in the middle 70s, I was, last time they won a championship, I was 10 years old. So, the franchise had had some good teams and some great players, but it had been struggling. One college player forgot that there was even a team in Oakland. That was Klay Thompson, by the way. But a few years ago, Joe Lacob took over, pointed to that 1975 championship banner and said, "That's a very lonely flag. We need another one." And last year they got it. 67 wins, 16 straight at one point. That used to seem like a lot until this year, where they started off 24-0. Ended last season with their first title in 40 years. And obviously a big part of that was league MVP Steph Curry. Steph's a pretty good shooter. For those of you who watched the game against the Wizards last night, he was, to use slang, he was clowning. He was all jumping up and down. Just settle down. By the way, for the record, I heard during this summer, after our golf game, that Steph was using the excuse of Secret Service being intimidating for why he lost the match. That is not the case. But he will have another opportunity. Obviously, watching Steph play is incredible. And for anybody who enjoys basketball, it is just a lot of fun. But it's not just Steph. There's the other Splash brother, Klay, who dropped 37 points in a quarter, and whose jump shot is actually a little prettier. I mean, I'm just saying. There were Barnes dunks, Bogut blocks, Draymond Green showing us heart over height every single night. Draymond's also known to add a few more words that I cannot repeat. Then you've got a couple of unselfish all-stars in their own right that were coming off the bench, Andre Iguodala and David Lee. And a bench that was so good that an opposing coach complained they've got two starting lineups. In the finals, Golden State faced Cleveland and a guy named LeBron. Down 2-1, Coach Kerr had the guts to shake up the lineup, and it worked. Andre came off the bench, played great D, took home the finals MVP, and it was a perfect example of the kind of team this is. Everybody doing their part, everybody ready to step up at any moment, unselfish play, folks looking out for each other. And it's the same kind of selflessness that the Warriors show in their community as well. They've led the way for the NBA's commitment to our My Brother's Keeper initiative, promoting mentoring in the Bay Area and nationwide. I know they met with some students in the White House Mentor Program earlier today. This team's also supporting the city's Oakland Promise effort to help more kids make it through college. You've had players take a stand against gun violence, work with they've worked with Michelle's Let's Move initiative. They've dressed up as Santa to deliver Christmas presents to those in need. And the first time I met Steph was because he had partnered with the UN Foundation to donate 3 anti-malarial mosquito nets for every 3-pointer he makes. So last night, that's 33 nets. So keep shooting, Steph. Not that he needs any encouragement, obviously. The point is, this is a great basketball team, but it's a great organization. It's a great culture. And these are outstanding young men. And some of them I've met before. Steph I've gotten to know a little better. They're the kind of people you want representing a city, representing the NBA, and the kinds of people that you want our kids to be rooting for. So they have a lot to be proud of. Good luck for the rest of this season. Maybe you'll break that Bulls record. But as Coach Kerr pointed out, he wins either way. Either way, he's got the record. So, thanks, everybody. Congratulations. You want to say something?
Thank you. I'm a little thirsty. Is that my water or yours? I thought maybe it was yours. I'm guessing it's yours. I want to say thank you. I also want to say congratulations for becoming the first president in our nation's great history to use the term clowning. So that was, although maybe Teddy Roosevelt used it somewhere in there. I don't know. But we want to thank you. Our organization is so honored to be here, to meet you, to tour the White House, and to celebrate our championship with you here. Our general manager, Bob Myers, who you met earlier, also mentioned to me that you're going to be a free agent at the end of this year. And so we don't know if you have anything lined up yet. But
I'm ready to go.
You can consider this a symbol of an offer that's coming. We want you, as soon as your duties are done here in the White House, we'd like you to be the leader of Dub Nation.
44.
So.
It is wonderful to see all of you. I hope you had just the right amount of fun last night and not too much fun. You know, it's hard to believe that that was the final dinner Michelle and I get to host for you. Like me, some of you might be in the final year of your last term, working as hard as you can to get as much done as possible for the folks that you represent. Fixing roads, educating our children, helping people retrain, appointing judges, the usual stuff. Those of you who've been in office for a while have also witnessed all the progress that we have made together, and it has been a partnership. The millions of new jobs created, millions of people newly covered with health insurance, the new energy projects that are popping up all across every state that's represented here. I do want to comment, before I take questions, on the issue of security for the American people. Whatever our party, we all raise our hand and take an oath and assume the solemn responsibility to protect our citizens, and that is a mission that should unite us all as Americans. Today, we're focused on three threats in particular. First and foremost is terrorism. The attacks in Garland, Texas, in Chattanooga, in San Bernardino were attacks in good and decent communities, but they were also attacks on our entire country. As Americans, we are united in support of the men and women in uniform from every state who lead the coalition we've built with the mission to destroy ISIL. We're working with other nations to prevent terrorists from entering the United States. We're unwavering in our efforts to prevent attacks here at home. And that's where the partnership with your states come in. This is a shared mission. We have to stay vigilant. Across the country, we've got more than 100 joint terrorism task forces, federal, state, local experts working together to disrupt threats. And at the state level, your fusion cells are pushing information out to law enforcement. We also need to make sure our extraordinary law enforcement professionals and first responders have the equipment and the resources that they need. And we've got to stay united as one American family working with communities to help prevent loved ones from becoming radicalized and rejecting any politics that tries to divide the American people on the basis of faith. So this is something that, this is a shared project. It's not something that we do together. And one of the genuine areas of progress that I've seen since I came into office, and it was started in the previous administration, and this was one of the findings of 9/11, was breaking down some of the silos between federal, state, and local law enforcement when it comes to countering terrorism. We've made progress on that, but that's where state and local partners are absolutely critical. This is not something that the federal government can do alone, particularly because many of the attacks may end up being lone wolf attacks rather than those imported from the outside. The attack in San Bernardino killed 14 of our fellow Americans, and here's a hard truth. We probably lost even more Americans than that to guns this weekend alone. On Saturday, another one of our communities was terrorized by gun violence. As many of you read, 6 people were gunned down in a rampage in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Before I joined all of you, I called the mayor, the sheriff, and the police chief there and told them that they would have whatever federal support they needed in their investigation. Their local officials and first responders, by the way, did an outstanding job in apprehending the individual very quickly. But you got families who are shattered today. Earlier this year, I took some steps that will make it harder for dangerous people like this individual to buy a gun, but clearly we're going to need to do more if we're going to keep innocent Americans safe. And I've got to assume that all of you are just as tired as I am of seeing this stuff happen in your states. So that's an area where we also need to partner and think about what we can do in a common sense way, in a bipartisan way, without some of the ideological rhetoric that so often surrounds that issue. A second area of threats that we're focused on is cyber threats. The technology that connects us like never before also allows our adversaries to do us harm. Hackers and nations have targeted our military, our corporations, the federal government, and state governments. They're a threat to our national security. They're also a threat to our economic leadership. They're a threat to our critical infrastructure. They're a threat to the privacy and public safety of the American people. This is a complex challenge, and we're not going to be able to meet it alone. We've made a lot of progress these past 7 years, including sharing more information with industry and with your states. But all of us are still vulnerable. So this is why earlier this month I launched the Cybersecurity National Action Plan and proposed significant funding to push our cybersecurity efforts in a more aggressive direction. We're going to start a major overhaul of federal computer systems. I want to do more with your states, including sharing more information about threats, improving our joint response capabilities. We have initiated a joint bipartisan commission made up of one of my national security advisors, former national security advisors, Tom Donilon, but joined with the former CEO of IBM so that they can work together to help provide us a sense of direction both at the federal and state levels as well as the private sector in terms of how we move forward on this. We're going to want your input, and I think that we probably have some good ideas about where your vulnerabilities are in terms of your state databases and what you're doing there. So that's an area where I think we can profitably work together. Finally, we all have to remain vigilant when it comes to the spread of disease. Since late last year, my administration has been focused on the threat of Zika. So far, while there's no evidence of Zika transmission from mosquitoes here in the continental United States, there are confirmed cases in Puerto Rico. And as leaders, it's important that we convey very basic facts, including the fact that Zika is not like Ebola. Ebola was primarily spread from human to human. Based on what we know right now, Zika spreads predominantly through the bite of a certain kind of mosquito that's limited to certain parts of the country. Symptoms are generally very mild. Most folks don't even realize that they have it, but as all of you have read, the possible connection between Zika, birth defects, and other serious health problems means that we've got to take precautions, particularly with respect to women who are pregnant or are trying to get pregnant. So we're going to be fighting this disease at every level with every tool at our disposal. I've called on Congress to approve about $1.9 billion in emergency funding for our efforts at home and abroad, including research into better diagnostic tools, new vaccines, improved methods of mosquito control, and support for Puerto Rico and territories where there are confirmed cases. And we're going to be launching an aggressive coordinated campaign with the NGA to stop Zika at the source and keep Americans healthy. I hope each of you join us, especially if you're in some of the southern states where the risk of transmission may be higher. So fighting terrorism and gun violence, combating cyber attacks and cyber threats, guarding against the outbreak of disease, these are some areas where there shouldn't be any dispute. We've got to be working together to keep our country safe and strong. And I look forward to the partnership with the NGA and each and every one of you in all of these areas. I should point out that one of the things I'm proudest of over the course of the last 7 years is that the federal coordination with state and local governments with respect to disaster response, I think has been extraordinary. I'm really proud of the work that Craig Fugate and FEMA has done. I think that kind of model of partnership across many of these threats is exactly what's needed to give the American people the confidence that their government's on their side when they need it most.